for MSME. NIMSME is a national institute aimed to foster the progress of micro, small, and medium enterprises. WTC Shamshabad and Visakhapatnam are licensed members of the World Trade Centers Association, New York, having more than 320 WTCs spread over 92 countries. WTC Shamshabad is the first operational WTC in Telangana, and WTC Visakhapatnam is the first operational WTC in Andhra Pradesh. Being part of the WTC Global Network, WTCs act as a catalyst to promote international trade and investment, complementing the activities of state, central governments, and other trade promotion organizations for the economic development of the region. In our case, it is state of Telangana and state of Andhra Pradesh. We express our sincere gratitude to our media channel partners, Heinz India, HMTV, and Msmas for their wholehearted support. For the budget analysis, we present you Mr. Narasimhamurthy, Director, National Stock Exchange of India, Dr. P. Prabhakar Reddy, Development Economist, Ms. Uma Reddy, Managing Director, High-Tech Magnetics and Electronics, Practicing Chartered Accountants, Mr. Ramdev Bajade, and Mr. Sudeep. We are extremely happy to announce that the session will be moderated by well-known anchor, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, Founder and General Secretary of the Foundation of Democratic Reforms. Dr. Gloria Sarupa, Director General NIMSME, will be concluding the session. Due to unavoidable circumstances, Mr. J.S. Ranjan, Principal Secretary, Government of Telangana, could not join this program. With this brief introduction, once again, welcome all of you for the budget analysis and request Dr. Jayaprakash to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. Friends, first of all, let me congratulate the Kapil Group, both the World Trade Centers in Hyderabad and Vizag, Shamshabad and Vizag, and the National Institute of MSME for creating this forum for informed debate on this budget. Because there's a lot of uninformed, politically motivated, partisan discussion going on all over the country. We require a deeper, more professional, more systematic, and more informed understanding. I'll be very brief in my comments. We're dealing with a group of experts, subject experts. I'll make a few general comments about the macroeconomic implications and some political economy issues. I would classify my presentation into 4 parts. There are excellent parts of this budget, which are extremely positive from the country's point of view. There are some good parts. They don't rank at that level of excellence, but they're pretty good. There are some bad parts, mostly omissions rather than any commissions. And there are certain challenges, including challenges of political economy. So I'll very briefly touch upon each of these, because for a group of experts and practitioners like this, we don't require to go into great detail. And hopefully there'll be some meaningful discussion. First, the excellent parts. I think unreservedly all of us must welcome, irrespective of party preference, regional loyalties, and sectoral experience, the fact that the capital expenditure has been substantially boosted to make it 7.5 trillion, a boost of 34% in times of some fiscal stress, is, I think, an extremely positive thing. We should compliment the government, and we should take advantage of it as a country. And if we add, as the finance minister stated, the numbers are real, I presume they're real, it comes to about 10.68 trillion, 10,68,000 crores. If we add the money that is transferred to states for capital investment, including the 1 lakh crores untied investment based on proposals for capital infrastructure in states, which is practically a grant, though it is termed as a loan, 50-year loan, interest-free. Today, 50-year interest-free loan is practically a grant. I think it's an extraordinarily positive thing. And we all should be very happy because we've been talking about infrastructure and investment in the country, and the government has really walked the talk. The second excellent feature, I would say, in this budget is, in a time of relative fiscal stress, revenues have generally come down in the country. Expenditure of the governments have gone up all over the world, thanks to the COVID pandemic, and we all understand what's happening. In that climate, to exercise significant fiscal discipline, restraint and thrift, and to limit the current year revised estimate fiscal deficit shows it's about 6.9%, and to aim at 6.4, and in the next 3 years to make it 4.5 or so is, I think, a very, very creditable effort. The government eschewed the temptation to be short-term populist at the cost of the long-term good of the country, because already, as we know, the debt GDP ratio of the government of India alone is now almost 65% of the GDP. And states, you add another 30-35%. We are reaching nearly 100% debt GDP ratio. Even at a moderate interest rate of 6% on the governmental debt, we are looking at 6% of GDP going only on service and the debts. While it's still not a critical situation, it's not a crisis yet, but it's certainly a danger zone. This year in the budget itself, the government of India's debt servicing alone is about 9.4 trillion rupees. It is more than the total money we are spending for infrastructure by the union government, and almost equal to the total infrastructure or capital investment by the union and the states put together. It's not a happy situation. Therefore, containing debt is important. Last 2 years, we all knew that fiscal problems were there, understandably. But now is the time to exercise restraint. I think government should admirable restraint. We again should compliment the government for that. There are some very good other features. The tax compliance is made easier. For instance, making it easy to file returns for the next 2 years in case there's an omission or something, without leading everything to litigation, etc., apart from a few other features of ease of doing business. The focus on climate change. For far too long, quite rightly, we argued that we are not contributing to a lot of greenhouse gases, and per capita emissions are very low, and therefore it's not our burden. But that stage is past. We like it or not, after the Glasgow conference, all of us now must take charge. Not only because it's a morally necessary thing to protect the next generation, but it's because practically it's vital, because the rest of the world is going to economically elbow us out if we don't fall in line. It's necessary, but it's also good for us. And luckily, technologies are now there which make a non-fossil fuel-based energy system sustainable, but we must move in that direction. And I think there are several proposals in this budget which push us in the direction of a very responsible way of going for energy consumption, which is renewable, etc., and combating climate change and fulfilling our global obligations. And I think we should really welcome that. The other significant thing that I felt was the accent on the big city management. Our urban management is chaotic. Urban poverty is rising. It's even worse than rural poverty. And we have seen what happened in the wake of the lockdown, where without preparation, we suddenly announced, and the rural poor who migrated to urban areas, suddenly without livelihood and without a residence, they all had to move with extraordinary pain and anguish. We all remember. I think that's seared in our memory. And unless we do something about the big cities, which are the hubs of economic growth and job creation, India will be in crisis. So there is emphasis on that. These are the good features. What are the bad features? As I said, these are features of omission rather than commission. The one thing that I am deeply disappointed about, and I think the government has squandered a priceless opportunity, that is to establish a first-rate healthcare system at a moderate cost, with just about a commitment of about 0.5% GDP, not immediately, but over a period of 3 years. An incremental increase annually of maybe 0.16% of GDP. Leveraging our strengths, we could have built a very credible universal care system from primary to tertiary without any out-of-pocket expenditure. That would also help the country in combating poverty, because about 60 million people annually, 60 million people are descending into poverty annually on account of healthcare costs or ill health. And India is uniquely privileged because at a very low cost, we can actually significantly alter the situation. Our pharma industry is a global champion. Our vaccine industry, we're already seeing the results, not only in India, but now increasingly globally. Our human resources are excellent. Our cost of care is among the lowest in the world. Quality of care is on par with the rest of the world. So we have great advantages. If only we leverage them, we could do a great job. I think it's a terrible bungling. It's also bad from political economy standpoint of view. I'll make a few comments at the end, because one of the criticisms of the budget, now you and I looking at from economic angle, growth angle, infrastructure angle, capital investment, we're all happy. But the criticism from the states and the field level is, what about the poor? It's not always a fair criticism. But in a democracy, fair and fair is immaterial. Perceptions matter. Apart from the need for the country desperately to help people come out of poverty and enhance productivity through good health care, if a universal health care program in a credible manner is rolled out, which is viable and economic and achievable, then much of that political economic problem also could have been addressed. I think government bungled very badly. Even now, I hope during the course of the financial year, the government will look at it very seriously, because there are very, very credible options available. I cannot overemphasize. This is an extremely, extremely sad omission in the context of COVID, because everybody is primed. The political parties, the people, the media, they all understand. And I think a great opportunity was given. The others, not specific to this year, but in general, we've been squandering this year to be squandered. Other omissions are rule of law. An economy cannot continue to grow at a rapid pace in a democracy without a credible system of rule of law. Dispute resolution and judicial delays being avoided, and speedy dispute resolution and enforcement of contracts. And criminal justice system, the police, prosecution, they're in shambles because entirely they're politically driven, controlled by partisan governments and parties. And there's no confidence in the rule of law system. And with increasing urbanization, rule of law is going to be a greater challenge. And we cannot pay lip sympathy. We actually have a very credible set of reforms required in the country, along with some investment in forensics and judicial capability and prosecution and so on and so forth. It doesn't cost much, but there's not even a passing attention to that. Year after year, we are seeing this, and India will pay a huge price eventually. Already we're paying a price. Small town growth, while emphasis on big cities is important, completely welcome it. At the end of the day, much urbanization must happen in small towns. Otherwise, everybody will migrate to distant big cities. They don't need to migrate there because their levels, their skills and levels, their level of operation is fairly at the grassroots level. And they live lives of misery, urban poverty. And there will be urban chaos in terms of housing, law and order, living conditions, etc. And rural economy will continue to languish. We require to reimagine our villages, aggregate the villages to have economies of scale, encourage growth of small towns so that there are linkages between the village economy and the small town economy, create first-rate education, healthcare, job creation, training, and skills infrastructure in the small towns so that the living quality is as good as almost anywhere else. And most of the people with moderate level of skills can be accommodated there. And in a harmonious way, urbanization will take place, what we call in situ urbanization, instead of always distant migration. Because what we're seeing is nothing in terms of urbanization. We're still at 30-35%. We're required to go up to 50, 60, 70% in the next 20 years or so. Phenomenal urbanization is going to take place. If you don't have imagination about the way of urbanization, if you leave it to serendipity, then it will be a disaster in the making. Already we see evidence of that. Let me come to the challenges. I'll just list them and conclude. The first is the privatization. This government's commitment and this clear articulation that government must fulfill its role primarily, not run businesses, is very welcome, long overdue. But obviously there are problems. Made a lot of criticism, quite rightly, about the target of 1.75 trillion rupees to be collected in terms of privatization, but actually it's only about 8 or 9% of that. Of course, there are challenges. It's not merely about how much money is received, it's also about how much burden is passed off to others, how much opportunity cost, and so on and so forth. But still, the issue is we have to reshape the debate. It's not merely about privatization or public sector versus private sector. It's about rediscovering the original purpose of government. And I think unless that language is used, because the government is failing in rule of law, basic infrastructure, amenities like stormwater drainage, and sewerage, water supply, and so on and so forth, and of course, quality education, quality health. And the government that fails in these has no business to squander its resources elsewhere. And because we're failing in these, we are now offering freebies. That brings me to the second question. The freebie culture, particularly in states where Government of India has eschewed the temptation to indulge in profligacy, has exercised admirable fiscal restraint. We all know what's happening in states. Our own Telugu states are a great example, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Without being political, now almost every rupee is spent on attracting the voters with short-term inducements. Apart from electoral malpractices of vote buying, the short-term freebies at the cost of the long-term good and at the cost of the government's primary role. And I think that must be addressed, and there is no attempt to look at that seriously. One thing that could have been done, and even now we should consider that, just as we have FRBM Act to ensure that the fiscal deficits don't go out of control both at the union level and state level, I think a time has come, because there's no point giving speeches to parties. It's beyond that. If a party says, no, I will not offer freebies, they will lose the election hands down in the states. Therefore, we must think of putting a cap on the unproductive subsidies, consumption subsidies. Let them have whatever they want. But just like FRBM imposes a cap on the fiscal deficit, let there be a cap on the freebies, the unproductive subsidies. It can be a share of GDP, a share of the budget expenditure. We can go into details. An expert committee can go into details. And if a legislation is enacted at the national level, just like FRBM Act, that is the only short-term remedy. Long-term, there are good remedies, but in the long term, we are all dead. So we have to figure out a solution, because state after state, we are indulging in extreme populism, short-term populism, without regard to the economic growth and ending poverty and improving education, healthcare, rule of law, and infrastructure. It is detrimental to the country. We are condemning ourselves to backwardness. And this is not merely, you can't leave it as a state's problem, because states cannot address it in the political economy we have. Just as the FRBM Act did not leave fiscal deficits to states, this law is now necessary in my judgment. And I think the debate has to start, and people like you must look at that, generate a debate, and then come up with innovative and creative ideas. Agriculture, the government made some genuine efforts through those three laws, and we have all seen the political opposition. Again, we see what is right, it attracts sometimes political opposition. How to package it, how to sequence it, how to build consensus. Because even those three laws, even if they are not withdrawn, actually two of the laws, it doesn't matter they withdrawn or not, Essential Commodities Act, if the government exercises self-restraint in keeping with this policy, the law is not necessary. Contract forming, actually a law will help, but it's not necessary. The only deficiency, only loss we suffered on account of withdrawal of these laws is the third one, namely the agricultural market committees. Their monopoly cannot be removed unless the states are now willing. Let it wait, there's no harm. But much more needs to be done in agriculture. For instance, can we create storage capacity for non-perishable commodities to start with, and then create pledge loans, a credit, because the stock is there, so that the farmer is not compelled to indulge in distress sale? How do you encourage value addition very quickly, so that the farmer gets a significant share of the end user price by compressing the market chain, and we get a significant share of the global market? Somehow, because of the political economic problems and the reverses suffered by the government on account of agricultural laws, I think there's not even a direction shown. I think we must now restart the debate in a manner which is consensual, which is very pragmatic. And finally, whatever we do, state capacity is critical. It's good that we have 10.68 trillion rupees to be spent on infrastructure, capital investment. It's good that we think of many things, but ultimately, Indian state is extremely ineffective in delivery. The state is effective only where you generate the impulse for the private sector to compete, to have economic freedom, to give choice. Therefore, the animal instincts, as economists call. Therefore, the tendency to excel, to improve, and to compete, and to gain market share, that is working. Where the government has to proactively act, only in rare instances, in mission mode activities, where special efforts are made to improve the way we deliver things like national highways, like vaccine delivery, like something else. Only they are working, but otherwise, in general, the government has become very ineffective. Therefore, improving the state capacity and transforming the nature of the public services and the civil services, while it's not directly a budget-related issue, it cannot be ignored any longer. I think all of us should focus on that if we care for the future of India. Economic future, social future, and political future. But all in all, while more could have been done, I think considering the circumstances in terms of the capital investment and the fiscal management, this budget certainly surpassed our expectations. To that extent, kudos to the government and the finance minister. But a lot more needs to be done. And we have to sustain this path for the next 20 years to really be where China is today. I'm sure we're capable of doing that, but not without concerted efforts like some of the efforts made in this budget. Let's hope that we'll do much more in future, but not only at union level, but also in states, because you can't simply allow the union to do some good things and the states to lag behind because of political compulsions. And finally, a 21st century economy and 19th century politics cannot coexist. Either the politics will drag down the economy, or politics must be transformed in order to allow them to both function rapidly and effectively. And I hope that we will not isolate economic management with at least the broader political management. I'm not talking of partisan politics, but the broader political economy and political management. And I tried to make in my short presentation an effort to bring those two together. And I hope this discussion will add to the quality of our understanding, nature of our understanding. And I hope that all of us together can gently persuade the political parties and governments at the union and state level to make our economy better, to fulfill our potential, not merely being an also-ran economy. Do a little bit, but not good enough. We can do a lot more than what we are doing, and let's hope we can do it in the next few months and years. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best. Hello? Dr. Bose, I think you are muted.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. Will you be moderating or can I call like the other faculty?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Now, thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Now, may I request Mr. Narasimhamurthy, please, just to share his views.
I think he's not online.
Okay, then can I request now Uma just to start with? Share your views, please, Uma, on impact on industry.
Yeah, thank you. But I thought Mr. Prabhakar Reddy would be speaking before me as per the agenda.
Yeah, so I think so. Yes, he will.
Mr. Prabhakar Reddy is there. Mr. Prabhakar Reddy is there.
Yeah.
On.
Yeah. No,
yes.
As you wish.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Mr. Prabhakar Reddy.
Okay,
there on the agenda and the participants would like.
Okay. Right.
And then I will cover.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. And it was very interesting. I was listening to Dr. Jayaprakash Garu very carefully. And I think we have a proverb in Telugu. We should be in the beginning to speak on something. Otherwise, we'll be left with nothing. Sir has given complete picture about the budget. So I'm really motivated by it. But anyway, I would like to do a small presentation. It is an objective assessment of an economist without any political leanings or whatever it is. I'd like to present my views on the Union Budget 2022-23. And it has 4 parts. One is I'll talk about welcoming features. Second one is concerns for inclusive development. And third and fourth will be about the impact on the economy broadly, positive aspects and the not so positive aspects. As you know very well that the budget is a very interesting statement. Our budget is a very interesting policy document that has been presented by Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman Garu yesterday. And it has really provoked many people. And it has positivities as well as not so positive aspects, as I told you. And basically, it is a growth-oriented budget induced by reforms. And it is an attempt to accelerate growth with stability. As Sir has already told, one of the important aspects of the budget is that it is really very laudable. The capital expenditure is so much, and it has given a very big boost to the industry and other related sectors. And this particular capital expenditure, I'm sure, will create a lot of employment generation in the country. And as a result, we can experience growth, and then I'm sure if everything goes well, there will be a kind of stability will continue in the coming years. So first one is growth with stability. This is an opportunity that has been made use of by the Government of India in presenting the budget, which is very important. And the second is that it has touched upon various aspects. Like this time, we have given very good importance to micro, small, and medium enterprises, and a platform has been created for their output marketing. And also, huge investment has been allocated for MSMEs, and also given credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. So, having looked at these things, I can say that MSME has been really given a very good impetus and encouragement in this budget. I'm sure it is going to, it is going to be on the track and it will create employment in the coming years. And this is another important welcoming feature in the present budget. And another important thing is that the PM Shakti, Gati Shakti, which is mainly concerned about multimodal connectivity, which will converge 16 ministries into one platform and try to improve the connectivity all over the country, which is very, very important, and it is a very huge one. PM Gati Shakti, if implemented scrupulously without any hiccups, then I'm sure it will give a lot of employment generation as well as connectivity throughout the country. This is another important feature that we need to really take note of. And apart from these, we have other aspects like, modernization of Anganwadi centers. We know pretty well that the performance of ICDS is not really good, but at least a good beginning is made in this budget saying that 2 lakh Anganwadi centers will be modernized. When these are modernized, I'm sure it will certainly provide early childhood education and joyful learning to the children in the age group of 0 to 6 years. So this should have been done earlier, but now that they have talked about it, let's make use of this opportunity, try to modernize maximum Anganwadi centers so that children's future will be, protected and, taken care of. Then next initiative is against the background of learning loss. We all know that as a result of COVID-19, there is a great learning loss. Many children were deprived of their education. Therefore, e-content through channels, 200 channels has been proposed by the budget in this year. This is another important initiative. I'm sure in its right spirit, if the government really implements, many children who are deprived of education will get e-content and they will also learn whatever they lost over a period of time. This is through 200 channels in the name of PM Online Education. This is something which is important, but at the same time, I'll be talking about secondary and higher secondary level education, which is really missing in this budget. And then another important welcoming feature is that MSME startups are given huge investment. Startups are given 2 lakh crore rupees, and whoever is coming forward to start their own new business, they will be encouraged in such a manner that there will not be any dearth of investment or infra. Therefore, this is another important thing that is very important encouragement given to the startup units. This is also very important. Then we have 75 digital banks in 75 districts and 1 digital university and land digitization, which is very critical. In fact, once the records are being digitized, there cannot be any scope for pilferage or corruption or other means of influence. Therefore, land digitization will play a key role in keeping the records safe and protecting the land rights and trying to give land rights to the intended people, the right owners. And that is one important thing taken up in this. And we can say that, in fact, the Government of India is trying to move towards a kind of digitized economy. And that is very important in the coming days. This digitized economy will try to provide us a lot of solutions through technology. Therefore, we talk about society technology interface, wherein we will try to address the various issues, problems that are being encountered by us. And these are some of the welcoming features. And then we have one more, drinking water being extended to some more households housing units are going to be constructed, and these housing units will certainly have multiplier effect in creating employment in different parts of the country. Just like our capital expenditure and the housing units creation will also improve the employment in different parts of the country. Ultimately, we can say that this is an attempt to look at the growth with stability, with employment creation, and so on. And they did a very good exercise, and they tried to touch upon each and every sector and provide allocations in a balanced manner. But however, as we know, there are certain concerns for inclusive development. There are certain areas which are not really touched upon, and they include. First thing is, I would like to say that before talking about concerns, there is one non-negotiable on the part of the Government of India. Sir has already discussed in a detailed fashion, that is fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. And debt is increasing year after year. And the fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP is 6.9 to 6.4. They say that they promised to decrease this year 6.4 to 6.4. And in next 3 years, it is going to be 4.5. And it is a Herculean task on the part of the government, because given the total estimated expenditure, that is something around 39.45 lakh crore rupees, and the tax revenue is 22.84 lakh crores. Still, the gap is 16.61 lakh crores. The issue is that the crux of the matter is how is the government is going to mobilize these resources? Maybe through borrowings, market borrowings. But while going in for market borrowings, it should not really lead to other kind of implications, like increasing the interest rates for the private sector, ignoring the very important aspects like creation of private consumption demand and so on. Therefore, it is a non-negotiable aspect, that is the Government of India should maintain 6.4% of fiscal deficit and 4.5 by 3 years. And on the other hand, it is estimated that the centers debt at the end of these 2 years, 21, 22 and 22, 23, are 59.9% and 60.2% respectively, which is something really rising. As an economist, I have my own concerns, my own worry about the rising debt ratio, debt to GDP ratio, which is very important. One needs to really give some suggestions concretely. Is it possible through, I'm just throwing a question, is it possible through adopt some kind of fiscal space creation measure by which this gap can be filled up? It all depends on the government's ability to raise the resources without resorting to inflation, unemployment, and also increase in the interest rates to the private sector. So this is a very big task, non-negotiable. And then we have concerns on the part of certain sectors. Agriculture, there is a silence about agricultural sector, though they talked about certain aspects, but the farmers and their development needs are not exclusively discussed in this. And even if you look at the procurement of paddy and wheat in terms of quantity, in terms of money that is being spent, the total value, but these parameters say that still it has come down. The share of budget on agriculture and allied sectors has come down from 3.78% to 3.36% during 21-22 to 22-23. And when we add agriculture and allied sectors together and look at the budget share, the share of agriculture and allied sectors in the budget, it is 3.87% to 3.51%. And this needs to be looked at very carefully, because the data speaks something else and we have the facts and figures. So therefore, and there is a feeling that instead of maintaining last year's budget figures for the agriculture, rather they slashed it this year, and it shows that they are not really concerned about the farmers and farming community. As a result, it may lead to socioeconomic inequalities. And another important thing is that the expected employment creation in agriculture may not really come forward. It may not happen. So on the other hand, in industry and urban areas, you may be able to experience some kind of employment generation, but what is happening in rural sector, we will be missing certain things. I'll just quote one more and come to the last one. The Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, which was announced in May 2020 with 1 lakh crore rupees. And the kind of allocations and sanctions, it is minimal. Implementation is really lagging behind. And another important thing is MGNREGS lost its importance. It is the allocations to MGNREGS are coming down. It was 1,11,000 crores in 2021. It has come down to 98,000 crores in 21-22. Then it has come down to 73,000 crores in this budget. Having pending wages to the tune of 21,000 crores. So that means the kind of allocations that are being made for MGNREGS is really very minimal. We may not be able to create employment in the rural sector. From the perspective of rural economy, I think there is a silence and there is a conspicuous absence of discussion about the farming community and the agricultural laborers in the budget. And I may not go into each and every details of this. Finally, before concluding, I would like to say 2-3 aspects, positive aspects and not so positive aspects in terms of impact on economy. Of course, as a result of employment creation, I'm sure a lot of employment creation will take place in urban areas, and whereas in rural areas, it may not happen. And the government may try to control, restrain the fiscal deficit, as they mentioned, if they follow the FRBM Act and other principles, and they may be able to provide drinking water to many more households, and housing units may be constructed, and a kind of momentum can be created in the economy by spending so much of money, so much of public investment this year. But we should be able to see that there should not be any socio-economic inequalities, and the rural economy should not be forgotten and ignored. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reddy, for the detailed presentation. Now we have with us Uma Reddy. She will be sharing her view on impact on industry, especially what is the menu for SME sector. Back to Uma.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Bosnair. It's a pleasure to, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
So thank you, Dr. Bosnair. It's a pleasure to be part of the World Trade Center, Shamshabad and Visakhapatnam that I'm a part of in this discussion. So thank you for inviting. It's my first connect with you on this platform, though I've known you for many years. And nice to connect with Msmas. We've had many years of, entrepreneurs relationship. And thank you very much to Glory and Swarupa. A warm good evening wishes to all the panelists here and all the participants who are part of this. I think every year we go through this budget, and we had Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, who just spoke to us about, I like the way he connected the economy and the politics part of it. And that was a good discussion. He threw open many thoughts, which gives you also different understanding of the impact of the budget. So that was nice, and I like the way Dr. Prabhakar Reddy also went through all the various budget points with the Honorable Finance Minister had put forth. He meticulously shared with us all these points. So I'll wear the hat of an entrepreneur. So I run a business manufacturing transformers and coils for electronic application over the past 3 decades. So what I discussed today is what I bring to the table, and in what way does it affect the larger number of MSMEs, the budget. Every year we have the budget. It comes to us, in the month of February. We look at it, with such detailed understanding, impact. And then within no time, we have a 12 months that goes past, and we have another budget that's there. And how much are we as entrepreneurs, and I'm specifically talking about the micro and the small and the medium enterprises, largely the micro and small enterprises, that, given this week and it goes past, and then we've forgotten what the budget is all about, right? But yes, it does make an impact on the lives. And the difference this year has been that, over the years, finance ministers have talked about industry budget for the industry, for the growth of the industry. But this year, within 5 minutes of her speech, she talked about MSMEs. And that made us feel very good, like we are an included lot. Last year, we were really looking forward because the last 2 years were very important because it was COVID time. We were going through, you name it, we went through. But at the beginning, she didn't talk much about it. Yes, they did come out with a ESI and a PF support mechanism for the MSMEs to, counter the pandemic, just to retain the staff. But this year, within 5 minutes of the budget speech, she talked about the trickle-down effect for the growth of the industry, reaching right down to the MSMEs. And the beginning was excellent in terms of the infrastructure, the infusion for infrastructure development, the infusion for, linking the rivers, looking at logistics, the roads. We're talking about, having the necessary ecosystem of infrastructure for the growth of the industry. And that was very enterprising, very nice, great to hear. And actually brought me back a conversation that I probably had many years ago with a taxi driver in Hyderabad. And it's a very interesting conversation that I had. And I was at the airport at Shamshabad. I was traveling. I had landed at Hyderabad and tried to make a conversation with the taxi driver. And it was at the time when there was a budget, and it's just after that. And I was just asking him how was business and how was everything here. He was not a very young driver. He was fairly middle-aged. And he said, Madam, so I was talking about what the government does, the Telangana government does at that point of time, what are the kind of SOPs, and how does it benefit his family? And he said, all that is fine, madam. But until unless there is business, there is an ecosystem for business, it's of no use. He talked about the way, the pre-high-tech city days of Hyderabad to the post-high-tech days of the city of Hyderabad. And he said those days, there was a dearth for business. There was a dearth for work, right? There were no taxi drivers. With infrastructure, with the high-tech city coming up, he said suddenly there is work. Now, first you need to have that, right? You need to have the infrastructure to have the work. And that was very nice coming from a taxi driver. He didn't talk about, the free rice that he gets or the free something that he gets that is being doled out to him. But he was talking about earning a living, having better life, and being able to earn for it. And I was thinking of him a lot that day when she was saying, and I said, so true that, when there is this vibrant ecosystem and there's this great infrastructure around, that you see a positive trend for growth and business growth. And she talked about 9 to 10%, 8 to 9% business, our growth. And that was definitely heartening for us as MSMEs. She then talked about what I would say are the 3 pillars of MSMEs. One of the 3 main pillars of MSMEs, though there are many, for MSMEs. The one thing she talked about was ease of doing business. Suddenly in the last 2 years, there wasn't that much of a discussion on ease of doing business. And this time she specifically in a budget speech talked about ease of doing business. And that is definitely one important point for an MSME because they're lean. The number of people in their companies are very few. They're literally wearing the hats of, especially an MSME, if you look at a proprietary concern or partnership concern, they're practically doing everything from sourcing to, getting things manufactured to making sure that, your taxes are being paid, the compliances are being met. everything, the marketing and everything. And so when there is an ease of doing business, and especially with a digitization happening, that's definitely, that is what is interesting for an MSME. The second thing that she talked about in the 3 pillars are, she talked about the technology adoption, research and development, and skill development. And this is another area that MSMEs are always looking at as an issue. Okay, technology adoption, yes, because we have to keep we need to keep growing, and obsolescence levels are very high in technology. And if industry needs to grow, then you need to adopt technology. And she talked about R&D. So what the outlay is going to be, what the fine print is going to be, and what is the kind of support that's going to come trickle down to the MSMEs, I really don't know. But then that's a positive point. And then she talks about skill development, and she also talked about skill development with the industry, that industry can be grounds for training. And that's definitely something which the industry has been asking for, because we have our idle hours, most as MSMEs. There are days when we have full capacity, there are days when we're running on low capacity. If I can use that time to train people, and I'm actually getting an opportunity to get people trained at my premises with a link to the the tool room facilities or the training centers, that'll help me, because later I can always absorb them. So MSMEs would really appreciate. So that's the second area that which sounded good to MSMEs. A third pillar which she talked about, and of course all my previous speakers also mentioned about, was the infusion of funds. She talked about the ECLGS scheme, which came up with an additional expansion of 50,000 crores. She talked about the CGT MSME scheme, which had come out, I think, with 2 lakh crores. And that's, I believe, is good infusion for industry, which is looking for finance for growth, and either for business growth or for startups, because there was also an additional funding support for startups. So this definitely will bring in the needed energy for MSMEs. She also talked about an additional point was, I think Dr. Prabhakar Reddy mentioned about it, was the RAMP, the Raising and Accelerating MSMEs Performance. And that was a new program with an outlay of, I think, 6,000 crores for it. And that could bring in a lot of new avenues. There could be sustainability, and with all this, of course, employability. We have over, I think, 6.3 million MSMEs in the country, with about 30% being with 45% of contribution to exports, and another 40% of manufacturing output, which is a large sum, employing, I'm sure, over about 30 million people across the country. But let's remember that these figures are the registered Udyam registration MSMEs. We have, I think, over 80% of them in the unorganized sector. And that's a large number, employing probably 1 to 5, 10 people, but they actually do provide that employment. So whilst the whole larger macroeconomic view and the support that was coming for industry and MSMEs, it was excellent, was very good, and definitely gives a very positive energy. Somewhere along the line, the MSMEs felt left out, because they need that pill for today's, sustainability, or just to be alive today. That was somewhere missing. The low-hanging fruits, or I know that there have been a lot of studies during the COVID, the pandemic period. We do know that there are a large number of MSMEs at the exit gate, not able to sustain themselves, yet need that pill to, come alive and move forward. And somewhere that has been missing. The only thing I can say about that is that we can only hope that just not the budget, but all the various ministries that are working, whether it's the Ministry of MSMEs, the Electronics, Ministry of IT and Electronics, which also came out with a large number of schemes. Electronic manufacturing has been given a boost in terms of wearable and audible devices. Of course, that's the numbers may be less. She also talked about the smart meters manufacturing within India. Electronic manufacturing definitely in focus, so which also provides a large number of employability within MSMEs, because electronics manufacturing does provide that. But of course, there is also need for technology adoption there. But having said that, most MSMEs have a want and a need that needs to be resolved today and in the next few months. And until the ministries of all these various ministries, whether it's the Ministry of MSME, whether it's the Ministry of IT, Electronics, Ministry of Textiles, all of them actually come out with schemes and policies that will support MSMEs in the next few months. There can be, we know today we are with the Omicron, it's fairly manageable, but we really have no idea what we have in store. And any more kind of a lockdown or a curfew situation, thanks to the various mutations of the COVID virus, that can really wipe out MSMEs. And if we're really looking at MSMEs, the larger picture is great, but we really need something happening today. And I think with these few thoughts, I will wait to listen to the other speakers and then take some questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Bose.
Thanks, Uma. Now, the participants who are having any questions, please post their queries into Q&A, please. Now, may I request Mr. Ramdev just to share his view on direct taxes, please?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. At the outset, I thank Kapil Group and the organizers for inviting me and making me part of these deliberations. So for topic given to me is direct tax implications of the budget. Time allotted to me is 10 minutes. Please bear with me for 1 or 2 minutes extra if that happens. Actually, in budget, there is nothing relating to direct tax, but in finance bill, there are many changes, which I will take up first. What are the important changes which have been proposed? Then I will deal with some 2-3 aspects which would have been considered by the finance ministry while presenting finance bill. Now, first, let me come to this virtual digital asset, which has been presented in the finance bill to be taxed at 30%. No word relating to any crypto transaction or currency or money as such has been mentioned. It has been proposed that 30% tax on transfer of virtual digital asset. So even definition which has been given in the proposed bill relating to virtual digital asset, it speaks volume, because the definition includes any information or code or number or token not being Indian or foreign currency that will constitute as virtual digital asset. And also there are 5 conditions total for taking anything to be virtual digital asset. And another thing which is very important, it says that virtual digital asset means generated through cryptographic means or otherwise. So these two are very dangerous, and I am not able to understand where it will lead to, because it entirely goes beyond cryptocurrency. One can't imagine where it will take to. So actually, as a professionals, we are waiting for some rules to be framed in this regard to come to know exactly what it wants. Because any information or code or number or token, it includes anything. Even a WhatsApp information may be included. As of now, I think so. And it is generated through cryptographic means or otherwise. Or otherwise means not necessarily through cryptographic process. It can be generated otherwise also. So what sort of transactions it is presumed to be included under the meaning of virtual digital asset? Let us wait and see. Regarding this digital asset, virtual digital asset, it is also proposed that any transaction based on this VDA relating to this virtual digital asset will be subject to TDS of 1%. It is a good thing. See, taxation is not a bad thing. Only thing we want is rationalization with some sort of relaxations in the form of compliances. So that is the thing, that TDS is not a big thing. Only thing which is concerning is that this taxation of 30% on transfer of virtual digital asset is subjected to only income. No loss will be allowed to be set off from any other, because through this, it doesn't mean that government is granting any legal status to this cryptocurrency transactions. It is not like that. As far as many of us may be knowing that any income generated is liable to income tax, whether it is through legal source or illegal source. So it is not that through this introduction of this proposal, government is legalizing any crypto transaction. It is not like that. Now coming to this updation of returns for 2 years, of course, it is a facility provided to the taxpayers who have omitted or some omission has occurred in the returns which they have filed earlier with additional tax and interest. It is a good measure, as Finance Minister has also informed that they trust the taxpayers. That's why they want to avoid any litigation unnecessarily. That's why they want to give one chance. And this chance is subject to several riders. It is not that easy. When can it be updated and who is eligible? These two things have been defined very clearly in the proposals. So basically, without going into nitty-gritties of all these provisions, simply we can say that if a person wants to update his return means it is different from revision. If any person wants to update his return, which he has filed earlier, he or she has filed earlier, can update by including that income which has been omitted, by paying additional 25% of tax on such income plus interest. If he wants to update within 1 year, if that updation is beyond 1 year up to 2 years, that maximum time allowed, then the tax will be 50% plus interest. No loss return can be updated. Once return updated, cannot be updated. All like these riders are there. And it is a good move. Particularly, it is a good move for those salaried class persons who are filing their returns based on Form 16 and who are omitting to include any interest, etc., which they are earning from bank. For them, it is a good move because this revision, scrutiny, it all requires a lot of process, a lengthy process, entailing a lot of other costs. So it is, in my view, it is a good move, and we should compliment for coming out with this new concept of correcting the return voluntarily by our own. Suppose once it has come to the notice of the department and department has initiated any action by way of revision, assessment or reassessment, then you can't update your return. So before any action from the department side, you must update yourself, then you will not be eligible to update it. Even survey search cases, assessors subjected to those survey search, they are also not eligible. So this is the shortest possible comment on updation of returns I could share with you. One more important proposal which they have included or proposed in the finance bill is relating to disallowance of expenditure relating to exempt income. It is so that if SSC is not earning any exempt income and which is not a part of total income, then no expenditure can be disallowed, even if it is relating to exempt income. Now it is proposed that whether or not that income is earned or received or accrued, if any expenditure is relating to such sort of income, then it will not be allowed. Another thing is relating to general deductions from business profession. It is really, I can say, very correct proposition now come to avoid all sorts of litigation. It is through way of amendment to Section 37 of Income Tax Act, which says that any expenditure which is an offense or prohibited by any law in force will not be allowed. It is there already. Now, what is proposed in addition to those disallowances for expenditure which is relating to offense or prohibited by any law, additional any expenditure which is relating to any violation of any rule or any regulation or any guideline. Through this proposal, if it takes shape of the act, the problem relating to freebies being distributed to doctors by pharma companies, that will come into picture. Really. Because when pharma companies distribute any freebies to the doctors, they claim it as expenditure for promotion of their business. Now that will not be allowed. In my opinion, rest assured that this section will come into play and those expenditure will not be allowed. Now coming to next, regarding, there are some expenses which are allowed on actual payment, like ESI, PF, etc., even any tax other than income tax. Of course, income tax is not a deductible sum. Even interest on funds borrowed from banks or financial institutions are allowed only if those interest is paid. Sometimes it so happens that due to some sort of problem or financial crunch, that interest portion is converted into loan or borrowing by the institution or bank. Will it be treated as payment? Courts have got contradictory decisions. To rest all the things aside, now it has been proposed that even if that interest is converted into any loan or borrowing or even through debenture, then also it will not be allowed from the computation of income from business or profession. Another proposal is there, which is very important in my view, regarding inclusion of cess on income tax as part of income tax. Income tax per se is, however, not allowable from the computation of income of business, profession, or any income, because it is a tax. Now, it is earlier people what used to do, even court decision are there, which says that the cess is not a income tax. It is not part of income tax. Now it is proposed that even cess will form part of income tax. Henceforth, it will not be allowed. For small taxpayers, it is okay. For big taxpayers who are paying crores of tax, whose cess comes in lakhs, for them it is going to hit. Another thing regarding 10% of TDS, which has been proposed on any benefit accruing or arising out of business or profession, whether it is in money or in kind, then 10% TDS is required to be deducted. To me, to my mind, it strikes that there are so many companies which provide the form of foreign trips, etc. So such type of transactions will be hit with this amendment because that will be treated as benefit or perquisite arising from business or profession. On that, TDS is required at 10% if the value of such benefit or perquisite exceeds 20,000. So we have to take care of that. Regarding TDS on VDA, virtual digital asset, I told you 1% per transaction and which is effective from 1st July 2022. These are the important changes from trade industry point of view, which are going to be affected, other than procedural things relating to faceless assessment, which I am not going to deal now. Within shortest possible time, it is not possible. Only 3-4 things on which I was expecting, and it would have been done by the finance minister, which has not been done, which disappoints general taxpayer. A common taxpayer is being disappointed from the finance bill on these counts. First, regarding enhancement of standard deduction to salaried employees, because salaried employees are not having benefit of deducting anything which they are incurring for earning that income. So the only deduction available to them is standard deduction, which is at present 50,000. Many were expecting that it would be raised to 1 lakh crores. To 1 lakh rupees. But that has not been done. That could have been done conveniently without affecting much on the revenue collection, because already tax revenues are going up enormously. So it would not have impacted much. Another thing I was expecting, that there should be rationalization of tax slabs and tax rates. There is a huge gap. For individual HUFs, the basic tax slab is 5%. After that, it straight goes to 20%. I'm not talking of other concessional things who are not claiming any deduction. So this is really big setback. That should have been, there should have been intermediary rate like 10% or so in between. Another rationalization relating to tax rate vis-a-vis partnership firms should have been done, because we know many companies have been subjected to tax at 15%, subject to some conditions like non-claiming of any deduction, etc. At least from partnership firms are being taxed at 30%, which is the maximum marginal rate. That should have been brought down to at least 20%. That would have been fair thing. And the last point which I would like to share on front of my disappointment relating to deletion of double taxation provisions. One example I will share, if time permits, within 1 minute I will share.
Yes, yeah.
Double taxation provisions are there in the Income Tax Act. Double taxation means one transaction taxed twice. For example, there is a section in Income Tax Act 50 capital C, which says that on transfer of any immovable property, if the registered value which has been shown in the registered deed, sale deed, is less than the stamp duty value of that estate, then the on difference of amount, tax will be levied. That will be treated as consideration. And the tax, if it would have been levied in the hand of transferor, that would have been sufficed. But another section 56(2) class 10 is there in Income Tax Act, which says that same thing will also be taxed in the hand of transferee. So same transaction is taxed twice. Since past 3-4 years, we are requesting the government to remove these anomalies, but they have not done. So we are disappointed very much on this count. So with this brief, I would like to conclude my presentation or talk on it. If any question is there, I will be happy to deal with those questions. Thank you very much.
Ramdev. Now, may I request Sudhir just to share on the indirect taxation, that is GST and the customs, please?
Sure, sir. I have prepared one slider which will give an entire overview of what the GST is there for the benefit of the people. I'm just sharing it. Thank you, Mr. Bose, and thank you all the speakers who have spoken on the budget. It gives a very much good highlight as far as the economic impact, business impact, and the direct tax implication is concerned. So I'm restricting my talk mostly on the GST, although the indirect tax covers mostly the GST and customs. Coming to the customs, there are no major changes per se. More is only of a procedural and the alignment of the rate is concerned. I'll also touch upon it for last 2 minutes of my presentation. But majority is the input tax, the changes as far as the GST is concerned. One of the major change in the GST which has happened is that there is an additional condition for taking the input tax credit has been imposed. For the benefit of the few viewers who are not very clear about the input tax mechanism is nothing but a tax which has been paid to your vendor, which would be more or less treated as like your advance tax, which you will offset it when you collect the tax from your customer and pay the balance to the government. So this is a simple mechanism, and most of us understand that indirect tax, the GST is an indirect tax. That means that is not a tax which has to be paid by me. That is a tax which I need to collect from my customer or client, as the case may be. It goes out from the pocket of my customer and not from my pocket. So here I am only a collection intermediary for the government, where I collect it from my recipient and give it back to the government. So if you actually look at, I am doing an activity which is for the well-being of the government and to support the collection of the government. But if you look at how the journey has been there as far as the GST is concerned, started very good. I think getting GST is a wonderful achievement which has been happened, and benefit of that, the business have started seeing it, and the tax arbitrage which was there when I was dealing with different states has been nullified, and it is becoming a same rate, same taxation wherever you buy from. So having said all the very good advantages concerned, the only things which is bothering every businessman today is the methodology of implementation or the administration of the tax provision is concerned. The majority is coming to this input tax deduction. The government has been very, very clear saying that I am going to give you a credit, that is, I am going to give you to take an offset of the tax which you have paid to vendor, only subject to that has reached to me. If it has not reached to me, don't ask that set off. From a government point of view, it's very good. From a business point of view, if you look at, my core focus is to enhance the business, give the value to my customer, innovate, grow, increase the contribution, increase the employment, generate more economic growth is something which is going to be the main contribution of a business. A collection intermediary is just an incidental in my business. But the things which has been laid on by the government on the taxpayer is enhancing day by day. Up to now, they were requiring us to ensure that my vendor has uploaded a return, and thereby I will be eligible to take a credit. To some extent, I had certain power, certain control over my vendor, and I was monitoring what has been uploaded, what not uploaded, and I was able to take the credit. Now they propose to introduce a new condition. The new condition, what they are talking about is that it is not that your vendor has uploaded the return. You should also ensure that the vendor has filed the returns, he has paid the entire tax without any shortage, he has not taken any over excess credit than what he is eligible. With all this condition, if it has been there, then you are eligible to take the credit. Now for me to look at whether he has taken an eligible credit or not, I need to get into the second layer of my vendor monitoring or grooming or training, as the case may be. So the obligation or the responsibility which has been there on the tax payer has been tremendously increasing, and it has been intended to increase in this budget also. As against the powers, there is a draconian powers which has been given to the officers. It is good in the government, in the interest of the revenue, safeguarding the revenue. It is very, very good. I don't deny that. But whether the powers has been exercised by the officer judicially, the answer for that is mostly no. Although these powers were to be exercised only on those dealers who have done some fraudulent transaction, some bogus invoicing, or entered into some illegal activity where there is a loss to the revenue of the government, exercising these powers is a welcome move. But once the power has been given, the tax governing authorities are using this power even to bother the genuine taxpayer, which is not at all ease of doing business. Ease of doing business will not stop by giving a one single window clearance for starting your business. It is much beyond that, and you have to look at the challenge what the business person is facing today in terms of these challenges which is going to be there. So anyway, there is a new condition which has been imposed where you need to ensure that the input tax credit is not been denied because of the 3-4 activities which has been done by the vendor. The another important aspect which has been brought in is that there could be an intermediary that I would be taking a credit in this month, but I will get to know whether he has paid or not only in the next month. So there is a provision with this saying, okay, you can take the credit and next month you reverse it with the interest. And after that, when the vendor has been paid, you can take it back with the take back the credit, but whatever the interest is there, it is going to the government. So this is something which is not a very, very welcome move, which I can say, because there are certain decisions in the High Court level where they have made it very clear, saying that please don't harass the recipient. You go to the provider. You, because of the fault of this vendor, the recipient should not be penalized. So this has been the judicial view, but the ground reality is totally opposite. Thousands of notices have been issued where there is a difference between a form called GSTR 2A and GSTR 3B, imposing interest and also penalties. So this is something which is going against, and it is being continuing. The other changes which has happened, which is a welcome move, is that what is the last date for me to take this input tax credit? Presently, it is 20th October of next financial year. That has been enhanced to 20th of December of next financial year. Technically, it is November, but you file the returns by 20th. So you have that another 20 days of buffer. So 30th November, it has been enhanced. 2 months of extra benefit has been given for one to take the credit. At the same time, they have also enhanced the an opportunity to give a credit note in case of to your customer where there is a rejection, deficiency in provision service. You want to give them a discount and things like that. A credit note can be given, and the tax originally paid can be adjusted. For this, the time limit has been enhanced by 2 months. That is also been taken to 30th of November. Earlier, it was the due date for filing the September month of the next financial year, as the case may be. The other interesting amendment which has been brought here is an amendment to the provision of interest, which has been governed by Section 50. Here, they have taken a retrospective effect to impose an interest from an retrospective date from 1st of July 2017. Today, the law has been proposed. It gets enacted maybe another 8 months or whatever it becomes operative, but it will be with effective from 1st of July 2017. The attempt has been made by in this budget and previous budget also, various lacuna in the provision, error or whatever the drafting which is there, which is not in favor of the revenue's belief that it is how it should be there. Everything is getting rectified. A prospective rectification is a welcome move because I can plan my business accordingly, but going and doing something from a retrospective effect is something it's not very friendly for a business. So in the interest, what they have done is they have brought in a new provision where it says, if you are erroneously or wrongfully taken the credit and utilize it, that is, whatever you pay to the vendor, you have taken it and you have used it for payment of the output tax which you have collected from the customer, you will be liable for an interest which may go up to 24%, but through a notification, they have capped it at 18%. So this particular provision was not in existence earlier. Now they have brought it through a retrospective amendment. So a lot of people, because law is very young, I can say, although we have been near to 5 years, nearing 5 years, but 5 years for a new taxation which is going to change the dynamic is not a long period. It's still a short period. It's a baby step, I can say, and people are not very clear of the law, and they are not sure as to what they have to take the credit, what they cannot take the credit. And getting this sort of a provision from a retrospective effect, where you have taken something in a due belief that you are eligible to take the credit, officer says, no, it was not eligible, you reverse the credit, and interest for that was not applicable. Now it has been applicable from a retrospective effect date at a rate of 18%, is something, again, not a business friendly approach which has been taken in this particular budget. We have certain changes as far as the refund is concerned. There are certain changes, there are certain practices which was being followed by the department. When it comes to the GST, there are two things. One is the department interpretation in terms of the assessment, and they are passing the order. Second is there is something called as a common portal where the entire compliance has been made digitally through a website, which has been official website, gst.gov.in, which everybody has to log into this system to do their compliance. So there are certain restrictions which is not there in the law, but the portal is given a restriction. The portal has been designed which is not in concurrence with the law. One such case is that this one provision of something called as an electronic cash ledger. Electronic cash ledger is a simple wallet system. I load the money into the government's wallet, which is there in my credit, which I can use it for the payment of tax in any of the month. So that is a simple mechanism. How the law has been drafted, and it is there in books as on today, is that, say, for example, you make a remittance of 12 lakhs, but when you are uploading the returns on 20th, you get to know that the liability to be paid is only 10 lakhs and there's an excess of 2 lakhs. The moment you upload it on 20th, an auto refund of 2 lakhs should come to your account. That is how the law has been given. Wonderful mechanism. But however, in practicality, the 3B, when you are filing with an excess payment, there is no provision for you to claim that automatically. Automatic refund is not there. So you have to make a form, refund application separately, which goes into an adjudication. A lot of questions have been asked, lot of documentation is asked, then the money has been released. This was the practice which was being done, I can say, without the authority of the law. Now they are proposing to get the authority of the law in this budget. There are also certain revision of the time limits which has happened, where United Nations organization, its affiliated organization, consulates, foreign embassies. So these people, whatever the goods or services they procure, they are eligible for the refund of the GST paid on these expenses. They had a time limit of 6 months to claim the refund. That has been enhanced to 2 years now. There is some clarity which has been given. What is the due date, relevant date for claiming the refund when you are making a supplies to SEZ? So that is also been bought in this particular budget. Very interesting and a good move which has happened in this budget is an electronic cash ledger. So as I told, electronic cash ledger is nothing but a wallet of my money with the government. It's like your Paytm wallet or anything which has been there, but an official government. You make a remittance, the amount is laying in your cash ledger electronically, that is in the portal. So this can be used only to that particular registration. Now I am a company and I have having my manufacturing unit, one in Telangana, one in Andhra Pradesh, one in Karnataka. I am forced to take 3 different registration because I am governed under 3 different state jurisdiction. So there may be a possibility that I have overpaid the tax in Telangana, but there is a requirement to pay tax in Karnataka. So what today's scenario, I have to still go ahead and pay the Karnataka's tax, whichever is the shortfall, and I have to make a refund application with the officer of Telangana and go through the adjudication process, wait for 30 days or whatever, and take the money back. But there is a cash crunch which is happening, and that requires an extra cash infusion into the business. So considering this, there is a very, very good welcome move. What they have done is, if there is an excess which is laying in Telangana, which you want to put it to Karnataka, please do transfer it. No questions asked. You can transfer it to Karnataka. The only condition is that there should not be liability unpaid in Telangana. Then only you can transfer to Karnataka, which is a welcome move which has happened. There are certain changes which has been made as far as the returns due date is concerned. There is a category which is called as a non-taxable registered person, NRTP we call. For him, the returns were supposed to be filed by 20th of the next month, have been preponed to 13th. And they have also made something to do with the cancellation of a registration. If a returns has been not filed for a particular period, the department can go for a suo motu cancellation of the registration. So there are 2 types of registered vendor. One is called as a composition dealer, who is a small time dealer. I don't even want to call him as an MSME. I want to call him a small and micro entrepreneur who is doing a very short business. He is not required to maintain books of accounts, see how much input tax credit, output tax credit, nothing. He has to just pay 1% of the total turnover, and there ends the story. So they have made it very simple, very good. And now what they're saying is, if this person has not filed 3 consecutive returns, then only the registration can be cancelled. That is the present provision. Now they're amending, saying that I'm not going to give you 3 consecutive period. By the way, 3 consecutive period, it will go to up to 3 years, because there is an annual return which has been prescribed. So government has to wait for 3rd year to cancel this registration. Instead of that, what they're saying is 3 months from the due date, if you have not uploaded the returns, then I can go ahead and cancel the registration. For a regular taxpayer who is not a very small guy, who's a regular guy, for him, if he has not filed the 6 months continuous returns, then it can go for a cancellation. Now they've taken the powers from the Act, and the rules which will be made by the CBIC board will prescribe what such consecutive period should be there for going for a cancellation. So the rules has been taken. We have to wait how it is going to happen. There is 2 retrospective exemptions which has been given. One is for unintended waste when you are manufacturing, processing the fish meal, except for fish oil. That exemption was given from 1st of October 2019. There was a small gap from July to 2019 that they have covered by giving a retrospective exemption. Similarly, they have given an exemption for the licensing fees charged for the liquor for human consumption, which has been given by the state governments. So most of you would be aware the prohibition department, they are going to give a license and monitor it. So if I'm a restaurant, I want to serve liquor, then I have to take a license. The GST on that was supposed to be paid by me under something called as reverse charge mechanism. That was exempted in 1st of October. Now they have given a retrospective exemption for that. But the question remains is that, is there a service at all? It is something which statutorily I am required to do. So is it a service at all? Is something which has to be looked at, because this retrospective exemption comes without refund. So for that period from July 2017 to October 2019, there are a lot of demands which has been raised and a lot of people have paid the money. This exemption says that you cannot take a refund, but if you are not paid, then no need to pay. It is not something which is equality. Somebody has come forward and paid, you are penalizing in, and somebody is not at all paying, for whatever reason he enjoys going it. That is how they have defined this particular law. So either way, the question is that if it is not at all payable, why an exemption should be there? And where it is not payable, Article 256 says no rupee can be collected without authority of the law, not even a single rupee. So thereby a refund should be possible in this scenario as well. So this completes my talk as far as the GST changes is concerned. Giving a small thing as far as the customs is concerned, one of the major thing in the customs which they have done to overcome the decision of a larger bench of a Supreme Court in case of Canon India, where the larger bench of Supreme Court had told that a DRI, Department of Revenue Intelligence, does not have a power to issue a show cause notice. So this was been a well-reasoned judgment which was been passed. To nullify this judgment, they have made certain amendment to make DRI as a proper officer, not from today, from a retrospective effect. And they have also protected the notices issued so far by saying that the notices issued so far, no order of the court or a decree can override this amendment. So that sort of an amendment has been proposed here. This is not new. Previous budget also, they have proposed something for a clubs and association, where there was already a Calcutta club decision where they told that there is no service tax to be paid, more or less equally applies to the GST as well. To nullify that judgment, Supreme Court judgment, they have bought a deeming fiction with a rider saying, with an explanation that it cannot go beyond any order of the court cannot override this. So this is the approach which has been taken. Another thing in the customs which is that the rate alignment is there. The exemptions, there were about 350 odd exemptions. They are making it as a sunset, removing various exemptions which is not required, and whatever has been exempted which requires on a longer term, instead of giving an exemption notification, they have amended the customs tariff and made the tariff rate itself is at the lower rate so that it can be easily monitored. So this is something which has happened as far as the customs is concerned. So the overall view of how the GST, the journey has been there. If you look at that, there is becoming more power to the bureaucrats has been given with a lesser responsibility. All the responsibility has been shifting to the taxpayer, and the challenges in terms of rates rationalization. There is something called a rate fitment committee, which has been purely headed by bureaucrats, not even a single trade representatives, not even a single politician. Nobody is there. It's only the government bureaucrats are there for deciding about the rate fitment. So how unbiased or how independently they'll be able to come up with the rates, we are not very sure. There is not much which is happening as far as the rate fitment committee is concerned. If you look at, there is an advanced ruling authority which has been there, very welcome move. Before I commit an error, I go to a government and ask ask a question, and they are going to answer. Very good. But who is chairing the advanced ruling authority? Again, two technical members, one from the state and one from the center. Both are the departmental officer. Can they give an independent, unbiased opinion? Historically, in customs and central excise, the advanced ruling authority was chaired by a judicial member and not a technical member. So this is also causing a lot of issues. Differences are coming. There is no answer for national advanced ruling appellate tribunal. There is no answer for GST tribunal. All the pending litigation are hanging. People have to either go to high court or keep the litigation as is and keep on adding the interest. So these were the few myths I can say as far as the budget is concerned. So this is my analysis for the GST and customs for Union Budget 2022. I thank both World Trade Organization and Msmas for giving me an opportunity to be here and share my thoughts. Thank you all for patiently listening. I'm here for question and answers.
Thanks, Sudhir. It was an excellent analysis, really too good. Now we have three questions I can posted in the question answer. One is to Mr. Jayaprakash Narayan. As the budget laid foundation for India's growth for next 25 years as claimed by the finance minister.
I would say it's a good start. Unless three things happen. Namely, the states fall in line and we actually create a framework in which the states don't squander resources on freebies excessively and ultimately governance in the states. And two, overall capacity to deliver and to provide services is improved by bureaucratic transformation over the coming years. And three, sustaining this growth impulse and investor-friendly climate. They talked about SEZs. No, India talked about SEZs for the past 4 decades, well before China talked about it. But China actually started with that in Shenzhen to start with and made a remarkable transformation possible. We are still talking about tinkering SEZs, but we have to really sustain radical and significant reform to encourage investment. But this is a good start. This, I don't say this automatically creates a path to make great things happen, but this gives us an opportunity. We must utilize it.
Thank you very much, sir. Now the question is to Mr. Prabhagar Reddy. Can 6.4% fiscal deficit target to be achieved as said by the finance minister? There's a huge gap between expenditure and revenue. How can the government bridge this gap?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting and it has a lot of implications. In fact, the 15th Finance Commission has stipulated a condition to the Government of India to keep that fiscal deficit at 5.5% of GDP. But whereas the Government of India in their budget made it as 6.4%. It all depends on the rate of consolidation in the coming years. In fact, the Finance Minister categorically mentioned in the budget that the rate of consolidation will be faster in the coming years. Therefore, they will be able to meet the deadline or target, whatever it is. And it will be much below the 4.5% target by 2025. That's what she said. I think it is possible. Where there is a commitment, there is a possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Now the question goes to Mr. Badal Kumar. From Badal Kumar for Mr. Ramdev. Can tax on virtual assets legalize cryptocurrencies?
No. See, it is not at all a currency at all. Currency means currency should be recognized by the government, like our Indian rupee from US dollars. So there is no status is being given. Tax is collected on the transaction. But that it doesn't mean that it has been legalized. So there is nothing like that banning or legalizing the cryptocurrency. And moreover, in the proposal which has been given in the finance bill, it doesn't talk of any cryptocurrency or like that. It simply says virtual digital asset. As in the definition which has been proposed, it covers any information, any code, any number, or any token done through cryptography or otherwise. So it goes far beyond cryptocurrency, whatever you are talking. So it is not restricted to cryptocurrency. That's why this tax is totally different on the transactions done out of context from the recognized exchanges or recognized currencies. Regarding granting of legality to the cryptocurrency transactions, not at all. It doesn't mean that any legal status is being given to the cryptocurrency transactions.
Thank you. Due to some technical problems, Narasimha could not join this program. Now, may I request
Mr. Bose, I have something to add for 1 minute on the crypto as far as the GST is concerned. This budget, they have given a clarity of income tax as to how to assess the income from this cryptocurrency. That has been given, but there is no clarity as to what happens to GST. See, you have to understand that it is only a profit which you are offering at 30%, but GST is on the entire value at 18%. So there are notices which has been issued across the country, and they are saying that every transaction of cryptocurrency, the GST is applicable at 18%. So this budget has not touched anything on that. So that is still a very, very open, big area, and a lot of disputes are expected on that. That's all from my side, Mr. Bose.
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman. The last presentation on indirect taxes was very interesting and very specific. Would it be possible to share that presentation if there's anything available, Mr. Here?
Sure, sir. I'll send it across.
I would appreciate that. Now you can get my email from the World Trade Center.
Sure.
And kindly share it. I'm not an expert in this subject, but it's always interesting to learn more.
Yeah. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, may I request the Director General Nismi Gloria Sorupa just to make her concluding remarks, please.
Once again, very good evening to all the esteemed members of this webinar on post-budget analysis. So it was very refreshing and enlightening, I think, for all the participants, even for the panel members also. World Trade Center, Shamshabad, and the National Institute for MSME, we have signed MOU, I think, a month ago. And then we have planned that we should do something for the sector, and of course, for our nation also, who are involved in this entrepreneurship and business and industries. I'm very happy that we could do immediately after this budget session. Starting from Dr. Jay Prakash Narayan sir and all the eminent speakers and experts. Okay, they have shared their views, the pros, the cons, and the good part, the positive things, and also their personal as well as I think organizational and sector wise. All these views have been expressed. I think there is some good to take for MSMEs. And there is a lot of gap. I think, that has to be bridged only by the government. Of course, some of the institutions are the practitioners, are the development oriented organizations. And of course, individuals also as a responsible citizen. So we need to contribute. So there were a lot of things, especially related to the tax and, related to the fiscal deficit and the growth. So a lot of things were being discussed. Being a Government of India organization under the Ministry of MSME, and rightly told by Ms. Uma Reddy, the growth the economy largely depends on this MSME sector, and we being the executive capacity building institution for the Ministry of MSME. From my point of view, personally, I was excited for one thing regarding that digital university. I think this digital university definitely it paves the way for the MSMEs to embrace the future of smart technology. That's what we have been talking about, Industry 4.0. And most importantly, this digital economy or the digital currency, I think RBI is going to issue from 22-23 onwards. So how, we are going to take it as a nation. So that is my concern. So a lot of awareness has to be created. Last year, the very concern expressed from the Parliament House, we have taken up a study, a dipstick study to study the loans to MSMEs by financial institutions in India during this COVID time, during first wave and second wave. So we have reached to 5,000 MSMEs across the nation, and we could go to 121 branches of 11 public sector banks. There is a lot of gap, and during this COVID, everything was online, and it was so difficult for a micro entrepreneur to get into whatever was announced during last COVID as a financial package. The crisis package, stimulus was given to MSMEs that could not reach to these entrepreneurs. There is a lot of gap. Even the banks acknowledged that, but only thing the banks contributed was to the registration of these entrepreneurs to the Udyam portal. So that's how today we have 60 lakh registrations, including the traders and vendors. They have incorporated, they have extended that. One good thing is that this Udyam registration has been now integrated with the eShram, NCS and ASIM portals. I think all the MSMEs should take advantage of this. So this digital financial literacy is very much required for our MSMEs. Though in 2020 December, the then Honorable MSME Minister, he has launched the Digital Saksham. Nothing has happened so far. Only in Maharashtra, some initiative has taken because we are part of that Digital Saksham and digital financial literacy awareness creation. So that is one thing. So we have to look into that. So when we are talking about Industry 4.0 and all these digital things, so how do we take it up and how do we grow as a nation? And another important thing is the skill. So as rightly announced by Finance Minister, so we are in the skill mission and we are in the skill building. We are doing as an institution. And for any skill need, we are there. And our ministry is, investing so much in reskilling, upskilling, and this RPL, many things we are doing. And one last thing, I'm disappointed because nothing specifically related to women entrepreneurs. We are trying to promote, we are trying to double the number of women entrepreneurs. Now it is around 20%. So we are trying to do that as a vision for India 2047. As a important input from our institute, from ministry, we are proposing to double the women entrepreneurs, but that is being missing in this particular budget. So these are few thoughts. Actually, my time was given only for 3 minutes. I think we are already, overshoot because of other speakers and a lot of discussions. So we are welcome for any awareness program. And Ms. Uma also shared about the capacity building in industries. So we are ready to build the capacity of these industries. Further, how do they build, and handhold for training needs of the entrepreneurs? So with this, really we appreciate the efforts of WTC and all the speakers, coming, responding to our request and coming and sharing. I think this will definitely help all the MSMEs, individuals and organizations. And this voice definitely will reach, to the policymakers and help the MSME sector in nation building process. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Bose, sir, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. Anyhow, the eminent speakers have given their very, very valuable inputs, and I'm very happy to share very happy to share this platform. First of all, Dr. Jaiprakash Narayan was very vociferous in his observations about the budget 22-23, and his mention about the cap on the unproductive subsidies and freebies should be definitely seriously taken by the Ministry of Finance. And it was always pleasure to hear you, sir. Thank you very much. Any topic that is given, of course, economic, political, it's always like storytelling. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of this on behalf of WTC and National Institute for MSME. Shri Prabhakar Reddy Garu, development economist, who gave a very crystal clear picture about various sector allocations, including the MSME sector. Thank you, sir, for being part of this discussion. Madam Uma Reddy Garu rightly mentioned about the ecosystem in which the business operates and should be addressed. And very special mention she has rightly talked about, which Msmas has also a very good amount of interest about technology, skill development, research and development. Sri Ramdev Butuda, direct tax, gave his implications on direct tax, has given very good inputs about the direct tax implications, especially about the virtual currency and its taxation. Sri Sudhir Garu, chartered accountant, who has thrown a very good amount of information and light about the tax implications related to indirect taxes. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of this discussion. And finally, Dr. Bose, the president, WTC, Visakhapatnam, and of course, Shamshabad, for organizing this event. Thank you very much, sir. And finally, Dr. Glory Swarupa, Director General, ma'am, for giving very valuable closing remarks, and especially her concern about doubling the women entrepreneurs. Definitely, this has to be taken up by the policymakers very, very seriously. So thank you one and all. Thank you all the participants who have been patiently waiting, though it is more than nearly 2 hours. Thank you one and all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stay blessed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording